Hello, everybody. We're live here on YouTube land. Just trying to find the pop out here. Um, don't matter anyway. Tonight we're going to talk about um, the Secret Service hearings and the bullshit lying Secret Service director and all the lies she said today on at the Washington D.C. hearings, House committee hearings. So we will get right into it. Let's start out right now. Okay? Start out right like this first. Okay. Set some up. Show you, I got my Make America Great Again MAGA hat on. Let's start out with this video first. Wait a minute.
Leaders. On July 13th, failed. The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will move heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again. Let me state unequivocally, nothing I have said should be interpreted to place blame for this failure on our federal, state, or local law enforcement partners who supported the Secret Service in Butler. We could not do our job without them. We rely on the relationships built over years of working together to secure events and conduct investigations. Our agents, officers, and support personnel understand that every day we are expected to sacrifice our lives to execute a no-fail mission. As witnessed on July 13th, our special agents shielded former President Trump with their own bodies on stage while shots were being fired. Selflessly willing to make the ultimate sacrifice without hesitation, I am proud beyond words of the actions taken by the former president's detail, the counter-sniper team who neutralized the gunman, and the tactical team who was prepared to act. I will be transparent as possible when I speak with you, understanding, though, at times that I may be limited in providing a thorough response in this open setting due to associated risks with sharing highly sensitive protective methodologies. The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As a director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse of our agency. We are fully cooperating with ongoing investigations. We must learn what happened, and I will heaven and earth to ensure that an incident like July 13th does not happen again. Let me state unequivocally, nothing I have said should be interpreted to place blame for this failure on our federal, state, or local law enforcement partners who supported the Secret Service in Butler. We could not do our job without them. We rely on the relationships built over years of working together to secure events and conduct investigations. Our agents, officers, and and support personnel understand that every day we are expected to sacrifice our lives to execute a no-fail mission. As witnessed on July 13th, our special agents shielded former President Trump
My name is
with their own
Julie Chu, and I'm
bodies
the director of the
on stage while shots were being fired, selflessly willing to make the ultimate sacrifice without hesitation. I am proud beyond words of the act.
Okay, that was enough of that right this second. Now, real quick, we will get to the next quick video. And then, no, hold on a minute. We're going to go right off the horse's mouth. Okay?
Oh, its leader is in the hot seat
Okay.
more than a week after a gunman was able to fire shots at former.
Let me, let me set it up. So you can see that.
Previously reported here on Sidebar, there seem to have been a lot of lapses here.
This is Sidebar with Jesse Weber.
Identified Crooks as a suspicious character an hour before the shooting because they saw him with a rangefinder and a backpack. Then a sniper team spotted Crooks 20 minutes before the shooting. Then even a photo was snapped of him and sent to command. And then how 10 minutes before Trump walked on stage, the Secret Service supposedly changed their assessment, classifying Crooks as a threat. Now, again, this is what the reporting has indicated, although as we will hear in a minute, that may or may not be true. There's also been reporting that spectators and law enforcement saw Crooks scale the building where he ultimately set up his position, and one officer even confronted Crooks on the roof, but allegedly jumped off when Crooks pointed the weapon at him, which also begs the question about how the roof wasn't secured. Crooks was positioned about 150 yards away, and there's been crosstalk about whether it was the Secret Service or law enforcement's job to sweep and secure the roof. And reporting indicates that a local sniper team was positioned in the building, but not on top. There was an admission that there were times that agents were used elsewhere because in a statement to ABC News, Secret Service spokesperson Anthony Guglielmi said, quote, "In some instances where specific Secret Service specialized units or resources were not provided, the agency made modifications."
I will be right back with a few words, and then we'll get back to that. Do a little switching around here. All right, we're back. First and foremost, we'll talk about, let's look down a little bit so you can kind of see me. There you go, it's a little better. What you're watching is the director of the Secret Service on, not trial, but the House committee hearings in Washington, D.C., lying her ass off from the start. And we're going to go through clips of it and, look at it and talk about it. And basically, that's what we're going to do. So just hold on 1 second. Okay, here we go. I'm going to turn it around, and this is what I want you to see, this segment right here.
Service has an annual budget of around $3.1 billion, and I believe around 8,000 employees. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, there were many security failures on the day of the attempted assassination and leading up to that day. Let's start with the building that the shooter used to shoot President Trump from. At any point Saturday, did the Secret Service have an agent on top of that roof?
Sir, I'm sure as you can imagine that we are just 9 days out from this incident, and there's still an ongoing investigation. And so I want to make sure that any information that we are providing to you is factual.
You can't, okay. Why did the Secret Service not, can you answer why?
Right there, she's lying. She knows the answer to. She's lying her ass off. Let's go back.
Why the Secret Service didn't place a single agent on the roof?
We are still looking into the advanced process and the decisions that were made.
Well, okay. Wasn't that building within the perimeter that should be secured? Do we agree with that?
The building was outside of the perimeter on the day of the visit. But again, that is one of the things that during the investigation, we want to take a look at and determine whether or not other decisions should have been made.
One of the things that you said, I believe, in an interview, that there wasn't an agent on the roof because it was a sloped roof. Is that creates an opportunity for future would-be assassins to look for a slanted roof? I mean, this is a huge question that every American has. Why wasn't a Secret Service agent on the roof? And there have been reports that agents were supposed to be on the roof, but it was hot on the roof. Can you
Question, Chairman. I should have been more clear in my answer when I spoke about where we placed personnel in that interview. What I can tell you is that there was a plan in place to provide overwatch, and we are still looking into responsibilities and who was going to provide overwatch. But the Secret Service in general, not speaking specifically to this incident, providing overwatch, whether that be through counter snipers or other technology, prefer to have sterile rooftops.
How many Secret Service agents were assigned to President Trump on the day of the rally?
Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the numbers of personnel that we had there, but we feel that there was a sufficient number of agents
How could she
assigned.
not
There
answer
are
that?
reports that several agents assigned to the rally on July 13th were temporary agents, agents not normally assigned to President Trump. Is that accurate?
What I can tell you is that the agents that were assigned to former President Trump are Secret Service agents that provide close protection to him. And that was what was actual on that day.
How many temporary agents were there that day?
Quite frequently, sir, during campaign events, the Secret Service utilizes agents
Again,
from
she knows the
HSI
answer, but
or
she's
Department of
But
Homeland
you don't
Security
know how many you can't
supplement
answer.
our plan.
Before July 13th, had the Trump detail requested additional resources?
What I can tell you is that for the event on July 13th, the details that were the assets that were requested for that day were given.
And
if the unexpected
We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Next segment clip is to question her is Representative Jim Jordan, and watch this. He really hammered her.
Director, were you guessing or lying? The day after President Trump is shot, Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said, quote, "The assertion that a member of the former president's security team requested additional security resources that the U.S. Secret Service or the Department of Homeland Security rebuffed is absolutely false." The next day, Secretary Mayorkas said, "That is an unequivocally false assertion. We had not received any request for additional security measures that were rebuffed." But 5 days later, the Washington Post said this: "Top officials repeatedly rejected requests from Donald Trump's security detail for more personnel." The next day, the New York Times said this: "Mr. Guglielmi acknowledged that the Secret Service had turned down some requests for additional federal security assets for Mr. Trump's detail." So which is it? Because both statements can't be true. Were you guessing or lying when you said you didn't turn down requests from President Trump's detail?
Neither, sir, and I appreciate the question.
But what were you doing? Because those statements don't jive.
So what I can tell you is that for the event in Butler, there were no requests that were denied. As far as requests,
Well, maybe they got tired of asking. Maybe you turned them down so darn much they said, not worth asking. How many times did you turn them down ahead of that?
I think that it is important to distinguish between what some people may view as a denial of an asset or a request.
Well, is Mr. Guglielmi your spokesperson? He said he acknowledged the Secret Service had turned down some requests. I'm asking how many?
A denial of a request does not equal a vulnerability.
Well, tell me what it is.
There are a number of ways that threats and risks can be mitigated. with a number of different assets, whether that be through personnel, whether that be through technology or other resources.
Well, tell the committee which it was. They asked for additional help in some form or another. You told them no. How many times did you tell them no, and what did you tell them no to?
Again, I cannot speak to specific incidents, but I can tell you in general terms, the Secret Service is judicious with their resources based on.
What does some request mean? How many times? Some indicate request is plural. So more than once they asked for additional help and you turned them down. What did they ask for and how many times did you turn them down? Pretty basic questions.
So again, without having all of the details in front of me, sir, what I can tell you is that there are times.
You didn't get briefed on how many times you turned down the Trump detail when they asked for additional help?
I'm sorry.
You didn't get briefed on that before you came to this hearing, knowing you were going to get asked that question?
What I can tell you is that in generic terms, when details make a request, there are times that.
What a liar. What a liar. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Let's get back to it.
Before you came to this hearing, knowing you were going to get asked that question?
What I can tell you is that in generic terms, when details make a request, there are times that there are alternate ways to cover off on that threat or that risk.
But that's not what he said.
But I have to be clear about something. This wasn't just Republicans going after Director Cheeto. No. This is a bipartisan hearing. Both sides of the aisle demanded answers as to how one of the most infamous political crimes of all time was committed. So with that, here's Democrat Representative Jamie Raskin asking pointed, specific questions about the threat level of Thomas Matthew Crooks. And again, how on earth he could have done this before
former President Trump got up on the stage at around 6 p.m. on Saturday, July 13th, that the local police had identified and even photographed a man who was acting suspiciously. And this man, who turned out to be the gunman, had been flagged as a potential threat. Is that accurate?
What I can say is that the individual was identified as suspicious.
So he was known to be suspicious before former President Trump took the stage.
That is the information I have received.
Why was he allowed to take the stage with a suspicious person having been identified in the crowd?
So I appreciate the question, and I'd like to make 2 points. If the detail had been past information that there was a threat, the detail would never have brought the former president out onto stage. That is what we do, and that is who we are. We are charged with protecting all of our protectees.
So you distinguish between someone who is suspicious and someone who's threatening, is that right?
There are a number of times at protective events where suspicious people are identified, and those individuals have to be investigated and determine what is it that identifies that person as suspicious.
So the Secret Service did not know that the gunman actually had a weapon before President Trump was allowed to get up on the stage?
To the best of our knowledge and the facts that we have at this point, that is correct.
So can you answer this question, which I think is on the mind of most Americans thinking about this? How can a 20-year-old with his father's AR-15 assault weapon climb onto a roof with a direct 150-yard line of sight to the speaker's podium without the Secret Service or local police stopping him?
So again, sir, I will say we are 9 days out from this event, and I would like to know those answers as well, which is why we are going through these investigations to be able to determine that fully.
Okay, it's been reported that the shooter was not carrying a driver's license or any form of identification. They had no idea who he was, but then he was quickly identified, I think within 30 minutes, by using the serial number on the AR-15 under a tracing system that is now controversial. Some people say we should get rid of it. Some people want to keep it. But is that right, that the serial number was the key information which led to the identification of the shooter?
That is my understanding, sir, yes.
What went wrong? What would you say?
Again, knowing that we're 9 days out, I would say, as I have said from the very outset, I accept responsibility for this tragedy. We are going to look into how this happened, and we are going to take corrective action to ensure that it never happens again.
And that brings me to another point. Director Cheadle had insisted during the hearing that she is waiting for a final FBI report and also an internal assessment that itself could take about 60 days before it comes out, all to understand, again, what went wrong and so forth. Well, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was not happy with that and also asked a very important question about the perimeter. Again, the idea that the building that Crooks was positioned on top of was outside of that security perimeter.
Hi, folks. Canadian Prepper here. Guys, did you ever wonder what the
We'll be back. All right, we're back. Let's get right back to it. And again, this is the longer show sidebar with Jesse Weber.
Concentrated presidential campaign in the moment. That is also paired with, of course, elections happening across the country that are happening in about 100 days. So the notion of a report coming out in 60 days when the threat environment is so high in the United States, irrespective of party, is not acceptable. And I think it's very important to understand that. This is not theater. This is not about jockeying. This is about the safety of some of the most highly targeted and valued targets internationally and domestically in the United States of America. So the idea that a report will be finalized in 60 days, let alone prior to any actionable decisions that would be made, is simply not acceptable. It has been 10 days since an assassination attempt on a former president of the United States, regardless of party. There need to be answers. Again, this committee, this is not a moment of theater. We have to make policy decisions, and we have to make them now.
I want to assure you and everyone on this committee that I'm not waiting for a report to take action. We have been conducting analysis all along, and we have been adding additional features to our security details since this incident occurred.
You established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
And then there was this part. So, not surprisingly, politicians, including
Wow.
current
You hear that
presidents
answer?
of the United
Jesus
States,
Christ.
they have threats on their lives. Well, what about the idea that there is a threat on Donald Trump's life from Iran? Because House Intelligence Chair Mike Turner explained how after the killing of an Iranian military official back in 2020, there had been a threat on Donald Trump's life. Well, given what just happened, are the Secret Service protocols adequate? What happens if the shooter at that rally was an Iranian assassin?
What are you doing, Anna? Working on my dating profile. Want to see? I think that's me.
To Donald Trump by Iran as a result of their desire to retaliate for the killing of Soleimani.
I have.
Have you read or been briefed about the intelligence of this specific recent threat to Donald Trump from Iran?
Yes, I have.
Director Wray, when we were getting our briefing, indicated that he thought the threat assessment should have included this threat from Iran. Is it your testimony today that the threat assessment, since you've read this intelligence, was sufficient to protect them from this threat from Iran?
My testimony today is that the information that we had at the time was known. That
Was it sufficient? Director Cheadle, was it sufficient for the Iranian threat that you said you have read the intelligence briefings for?
that information was passed to,
Well, I'm not asking the bureaucratic issue of who did it get passed around to. Director Cheadle, was it sufficient for the specific and generalized threats to Donald Trump's life from Iran?
yes, I do believe it was.
Director Cheadle, is an Iranian assassin more capable than a 20-year-old?
Sir, I think we've acknowledged that there was gaps and a failure that day. We are
When I
not-
raised this issue with Director Wray, he was incensed. He was shocked that the threat assessment of Iran did not seem to be, as we and I discussed, baked in to your security footprint and your threat assessment. And he went on to say that the generalized threat that he has told the whole country that we are under from a potential terrorist threat. He has said we're under the highest threat level since 9/11, that the lights are flashing red. And he has specifically indicated that people have crossed the southern border as a result of the Biden administration's policy, and that there are in our country today terrorists and individuals who are affiliated with terrorist groups and organizations. That would be a heightened threat environment, Director Cheadle, would it not?
Yes.
Yeah, and look, some of Director Cheadle's comments were arguably quite concerning, and she was caught in a bad position.
Have you visited the site?
No, I have not.
9 days and you have not visited the site. Okay, there wasn't a CAT team, full CAT team on site. There wasn't counter surveillance teams on site. But this is the thing. You just said you had the ability to beef up the security. You knew about the threat, and you didn't. The shooter has visited the site 2 more times than you have, and he had a drone, and he picked the AGR building. So you said, do you remember in an ABC interview you did that you didn't have people on the roof of the AGR building because you were worried about safety because of the slope?
I recall that statement.
Does the Secret Service have a written policy you can share with us about slope roofs?
No.
Okay. So why'd you act like there was one? Because is it your practice to comment on enormous events of enormous national implications when you're ignorant of the facts? That's rhetorical. So here's this thing with the slopes. You go all up to like 1812, you can go to 112, which is about as flat as you can get without it being completely flat. And you're saying that there was a danger, safety concern there. But the problem is, Director, you put your counter snipers on a 312 roof, which is steeper than the 112. And by the way, the 112 is ADA compliant. You can build a ramp for a wheelchair on a 112 roof. So these are nothing but pathetic excuses, and they make no sense, and they're a bunch of cow dung. All the law enforcement I've spoken with over the last 9 days are amazed that the AGR rooftop was not secure. You want to know why? Because it's dangerous. I have never had any long gun training in my life. I own an AR-15, and last time I shot it one time my whole life, was 6 years ago. That is until Saturday, where we recreated the events in Savoy, Texas. We recreated what happened to Butler. I was lying prone on a sloped roof at 130 yards at 6:30 at night. And I knew that he had a scope I didn't know in kind, red dot, or magnified. So I shot 8 rounds from both. You know what the result was? 15 out of 16 kill shots. And the one I missed would have hit the president's ear. That's a 94% success rate. And that shooter was a better shot than me. It is a miracle President Trump wasn't killed. Corey Comparatore life is over because that damn shooter made it on the roof. And it wasn't the roof that was dangerous. It was a nut job on top of the roof. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful. And you should be fired immediately and go back to Gardens of Rio. Chairman, I go back.
That last part was because he was apparently the head of global security at PepsiCo. Or how about this one? Because at one point, Director Cheadle was shown videos of spectators that day at the rally seemingly pointing out the shooter before he opened fire. And this was to highlight the idea of how could you not classify this guy as a threat?
We have people
It's Leech Comes Kid. Sriracha now, y'all. Sriracha again. Sriracha now, y'all. Look at that now, y'all. Take it back
That's
now, y'all.
the end of the show. Have a good
Sriracha real
night.
smooth.
That
tell you, as I stated
That murder
earlier,
is
sir,
on
that
her.
the moment that the shift
Have a good night.
surrounding the president were